Morning, everybody. It's Dr. Kenton Wakes Up. I'm Dr. Kenton. Today is Monday, December 9th, 2024. It's still before 8. I got up a little early. Decided not to fight the urge, whatever that means. Today's Monday. Mondays are for meetings, and I've got plenty of other stuff I need to do today, so we're gonna get it started with our day. I got a racquetball appointment this afternoon, and the college is throwing its faculty and staff appreciation party today. So I gotta be there for that. Gotta get your piece of cake and your cookie. It's not fair. They always have delicious food. Always, always, always. Well, I'm struck by this morning. I woke up and I didn't really have anything particular on my mind other than a generic sense of needing to get some things done. So I got up, but I was reading a couple of news articles. Maybe news isn't right. Opinion pieces about this concept called disparate impact, and that one tenet, one central belief of anti-discrimination is that if a test or a qualification step has an undue skew toward one or away from one particular group of people, like let's say toward women or toward black men or toward Asian women or whatever, that's how a person should go about identifying things that are unfair. I'm probably getting it wrong because I'm just waking up. That's the point. But it struck me that there's a book, in the comments from this article talking about the danger of disparate impact is these a lot of people making comments about how content of your character and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And it just reminded me of a book. It seems like the lessons of this book have been public for 40 plus years, and yet it seems people are not acting on them. And I'll come back. There's a Stoic philosopher influence on that too. For that, in the cup today, Major Dickason's blend with Coffeemate. Fresh ground this morning. Delicious. I think it's among my. It's in the top 5 of all-time favorite flavors that I like. And when I say Coffeemate, I'm talking about the standard, not flavored, standard. Anyway, so the concept of the book I'm talking about is The Mismeasure of Man. It was written by Jay Gould, and in the aggregate, that book was written about the unfairness, the structured targeting of intelligence testing to make them unfairly skewed toward white people, more or less. And at the time that these intelligence tests were developed, certain ethnicities were not considered white, like Italians, like Jews. So, this is early 20th century, early 1900s, when the intelligence test really took root. And I just think that the arguments against using such a test for a decision about merit is in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, he talks about the value of dealing with sorrow immediately rather than putting it off. Because putting it off, and maybe I'm getting it wrong, I just read it over the weekend, maybe it was Seneca instead, talked about the value, yes, Seneca, on consolation to Helvia. Section 17.1 is better to conquer grief than to deceive it. I think the issue is that we've known for years and years and years that these kinds of tests, these kinds of measures are biased, and instead of rejecting them, just on the face of their use to say something about somebody that isn't specifically built into the test. Like you could talk about a test that measures somebody's overall physical fitness, and it has all kinds of activities that are related to physical fitness. But when you talk about intelligence and they're only asking questions of certain types, that would seem to favor one group of people over another. And if they ask trivia questions that would only be would most likely be known by people of a certain race and not others, these are unfairnesses. And the fact that those kinds of measures keep getting touted as standards, and more in today's environment, it seems like people are trying to design things that don't have any bias, or that acknowledge their bias, or are used differentially to either get around bias or to explain it away somehow. The issue is, maybe you don't rely on a third party. Don't rely on the test to tell you whether somebody's smart or not. Find some other measure that's maybe more directly in line with what it is that you're expecting them to be able to do. If you're hiring a computer programmer, how about you give them some computer programming examples to try and figure out and see how they go about solving them. And of those that don't exactly solve the things, see if there's any measure about them that any kind of lesson you can draw from. Anyway, I say this as somebody who's an assessment guy. I teach about assessment. I was an accreditation coordinator. I'm not just saying this out of a sense of feigned outrage about misqualification or whatever, but I think the issue is that we have not yet had the deepest conversation about what these tests actually are supposed to do, what they actually tell you, whether they're even important or not. It seems like there was a time before the SAT, if you can believe it. And people made decisions about who should get into college before that. And maybe the reason there's an SAT is because they thought the SAT was going to remove the bias. And, if there's bias in the SAT, then deal with the SAT. Not the bias. Can't do anything about that, right? But now, so maybe the SAT wasn't as super important as we had originally thought, because many schools don't use it anymore for admission decisions. What do they use instead? I don't know. I've never been part of one of those discussions. GPA in high school, class rank. I don't know. Anyway, there's got to be a way, And, and I know that the first argument is that the SAT helps to it's an affordance. I'm going to think of it in a second. It's an efficiency. We use the SAT as a way to make an efficient, and there are old wives' tales, I guess. Sorry if that's somehow disqualifying, and that you're now going to stop watching or unsubscribe because I used that euphemism. There's a folklore about the value of what the SAT actually says or tells you about an applicant. At one point I was told it's sort of a proxy for a given student's performance in the first 2 years of their college experience. So if somebody scores highly on the SAT, they'll probably do well measured by GPA on the first 2 years of college, and the first 2 years of college are generally focused on general education stuff. Your, required amount of math and science and economics and English lit and historical perspectives, all the things that are required usually for freshmen and sophomores. Sorry again, I've used the word freshman. First year and second year students. Anyway, so the point is, I think that we're continuing to have this conversation, and it's because we never really dealt with the underlying problem. That what the problem, is it a problem? Anyway, so the issue is we're trying to make an efficient decision about somebody. We're going to try to admit people to school or hire people into a profession that we want them to be successful because we're going to be paying them, or we want them to be able to graduate from our program because if our graduation rate is low, that might say something about us, and people would tend to not start to consider us. We want our business to be successful so that we continue to be in business. So you want to make a wise decision. My impression, getting as far as I have in this, is that there's no single measure. There's no reason why somebody should rely on a standardized test to tell you anything specific about somebody's particular potential qualifications. And the fact that we still keep doing it means we haven't reached the point where we found something that works as well or works the same. Maybe someday. All right, so today's Monday. I have meetings, just like every other Monday. But there will be pie. Well, not pie. There will be cake and cookies and delicious entrees as well. So, got to make some wise choices for lunch. And not to overfill, because racquetball. Love you, bye.